Welcome to the Diplomatic Mission for the Cygnus. I am Ambassador Nectaria, and we are going to talk about some pretty interesting questions that came to me, which caused me to further reflect on a need to expand on the aspect of the emotional side to this process. So, essentially, there are burning questions about what does this mean for me if I partake in this ambassador passport process? What's the difference between the different programs offered? And how long will this journey take? And how far can I go with this journey? If you are the type of soul that likes to take a huge dive into your endeavors, and you are passionate, and you're driven, and you're completely operating in totally being inspired to be as free as you possibly can be free. The process that's available for that type of entry is going to be enumerated in our gold plan. And the gold plan goes on for a year. So it's your contracting with us, Diplomatic Mission for the Cygnus, and of course I have to always put this in, we don't offer legal, tax, medical, or financial advice. So all of what we're offering here is experiences that I've devised and that have worked for me for over 20 years. After you go through the online workshop and you've selected which program you're going to go with, okay? It's at that point that I'm going to present to you the various differences. So there are those who wish to just express being an American national or a state national, totally okay, absolutely perfect. We're happy to help you. For those who want to bring in the element of being an ambassador for Christ, I'm going to go through where this came from and how I was inspired to do it based upon the federal documentation that I went and read over. And I'm like, okay, so these are not things I just made up out of the clear blue and said, okay, well, maybe the government, will understand. No, these are actual sources that I've been able to retrieve from government websites or government manuals. And again, like I said, I've been studying this particular side of it since 2009 and public law since 2001 or thereabouts. The diplomatic passport, the process that the diplomatic passport represents, the basic description is that this is a journey, and so this is kind of like from my notes that I'm reading from here because there's so much to talk about here. So the journey begins with acquiring the passport, and we would call it the ambassador passport. So the ambassador passport or the American national passport or the Canadian non-surety national passport, totally okay. Those are the three options we have. This symbolizes a new status and separation from former dependencies or restrictions, and also jurisdictional restrictions as well. The significance is the passport process with us represents a shift in your identity, marking the beginning of a legally recognized by the United States Department of State. It's legally recognized, and it's a protected journey to your autonomy. So that's what the meaning is behind the ambassadorial passport. The gold process also includes other filings too. So a part of the filing, if one wishes to integrate this, it's not necessary, but you're welcome to bring this in to integrate it in, is getting your birth certificate authenticated. And it depends on you. If you just want to get it authenticated at your state level, great. If you want to get it authenticated at the federal level, that's totally acceptable. So I've done both, and I have examples of both ways to do it. So depending on your preferences and what you're going to be doing as far as the authenticated birth certificate, all that represents is you have an understanding after going through the 7.5-hour workshop and other videos too if you wish to indulge on Ambassador Nectaria on YouTube or Rumble. Basically what the authenticated birth certificate is it's indicating you're aware that this birth certificate is representing a level of some kind of a title. And what you're doing is getting it doubly authenticated if you so choose, and you're going to go ahead and preserve that record, and then you're going to file as a part of your federal filing. You're going to take this documentation, and there's going to be a special way it's put together so that when you're making your federal filing, you're confirming and affirming that you now hold title, proper title, to that original birth certificate. Now, of course, these are going to have to be originals. They're not going to be copies, because authentication means you're going to be getting it directly authenticated by the offices that are with the charge to do so. So the path progresses to an authenticated birth certificate. Here, the symbols of broken chains reflect the release from past legal or societal constraints, meaning you're no longer surety for the national debt. And of course, the significance is the authentication of the birth certificate symbolizes a reclaiming of identity or your first estate and your status, breaking away from past ties that previously bound you. All right, so that's just one part of it now. The federal filing does include other things too. The federal filing for your vaccine, some people would call it exemption. I'm going to call it exceptions because it's under the exceptions rule. So basically what we do is we also have language within your federal filing, which is going to be your statement under the form of an affidavit, stipulating that the reasons why you are not going to be participating in any vaccine program unless it's completely by and through your total free will. Now, for those who wish to select that they're not going to be participating in any vaccines whatsoever, there's also provisions for that too. And the reason I've made availability for both choices is because of an immigration attorney asking me to make a flexible template so that as we're helping others that want to come into the country the right way, he just asked me kindly to provide the access, because I was focusing exclusively on the COVID shots and I wasn't thinking to add in the full language, which of course I did. And so we're going to be making that available too. So the milestone is a federal filing that grants exemption or exceptions from vaccine mandates, ensuring bodily autonomy and freedom of choice. The significance here is the filing represents freedom from enforced health mandates, emphasizing your personal sovereignty. The other aspect, if this would also fall under the category of your federal filing. So for those who were married under the state and you wish to correct that marital agreement and not include the government within that relationship, there's templates for people who were married first in the system, and then templates for those who weren't married yet but want to do it, quote unquote, the unincorporated way, the way without the state being that, let's say, the interloper within that relationship. So we have templates and videos that you can access too when you join the Gold program. And you could, like I said, this is, it could take you a whole year to do all of this stuff, but at your pleasure and when you're able to take the time to study this, it's not rushed to the finish line. We do try to help you to focus first on your passport, because you got to start somewhere, okay? But as you continue and you fulfill each little checkbox and you're fulfilling and finishing off your process, getting your status corrected, the marriage issue is a real issue for people in terms of after they're awakening to the truth. They're like, wait a minute, I'm seeing that I have to do something about this marital contract. So basically, on this path, this part of the path, any fraudulent or mistaken marital associations, which includes the states, can be dissolved or defined, clearing past errors or unintended entanglements. the significance here is this step underscores a return to an authentic state of personal relationships and legal clarity and lawful clarity in this particular instance, ensuring personal history aligns with one's true intentions. So that marriage, instead of bringing the government in as the third party, you're bringing God back into the rightful place of being the first party through which that marriage takes place. The driver's license, some people get nervous and they're like, wait a minute, I don't want to just use a passport. What if the police stop me and I get nervous, and should I have a driver's license? Should I not have a driver's license? How does that work? There's a diplomatic way to do it. And so for the gold participants who want to really take a plunge into studying this stuff over time, I show you what I did for myself and how I diplomatically maintain holding a driver's license and holding that within, particularly in my instance, I have it within a special trust arrangement. So again, everyone's needs are different and it's totally cool, but I just at least share that with you for those who feel weird about only using their passport to present that to the police should there be some kind of a traffic interaction. So this path continues with acquiring, if for those new people who do go out and get a driver's license, in this instance, you can have me coach you on how to fill out your driver's license application so it fits the best description as to what you in sincerity mean to say on that documentation. Then, of course, for gold members too here is the establishment of a ministry. Some people say, hey, I would like you to integrate trust language into that. Totally acceptable, not a problem. And there's reasons why we would do that. So there's some people that literally live alone and they don't have family close by, so they don't have an additional person right there with them to walk into the bank with them. So I structure their ministries a certain way where they can just walk in the bank. Of course, I'm always with you on the phone, as long as I'm authorized to do so. That's totally okay with the banks. So basically, as a gold participant, the creation of a ministry trust marks a step into self-governance, very important concept here, self-governance and spiritual autonomy, providing a structure that supports the seeker's missions and values. And of course, the significance is this trust provides a foundation for financial and spiritual independence, marking a pivotal step in the transition to full freedom. So this is how God moves through you to serve others, your brothers and sisters in this world, or your purpose. And there's many ways and many trust modalities in terms of ministries that you can express. We have people that are using it for security, education, for diplomats, ambassadors for Christ. We have people that are using it for permaculture. We have people using ministries or asking me for ministries for unbelievable, like the list could go on and on. Some have properly asked for ministries as a religious organization for their farms. So we would have to go through that with you just to make sure that your verbiage fits properly to describe what you're seeking to do and how you're seeking to do it. We're going to have to change some language around a little bit, but that's okay. We'll walk you through all that process, of course. Of course, freedom and broken chains from all contracts that are not in alignment with your purpose. So the journey concludes as the seeker finds ultimate freedom represented by the breaking of the chains tied to underworld contracts. Now that's a unique spin that I bring into this. There's a lot of videos up there on YouTube. You could get it on Rumble too, Ambassador Nectaria, where I get into detail on the need to break away from these evil covenants that were done in our names, on our behalf, without our knowledge or consent. And we're no longer standing for that. So every action you're taking in this course, it takes you closer into your true self under your creator. So this marks a full release from previous oppressive structures in all venues. The significance here is this stage symbolizes the complete liberation, empowerment of the seeker to live freely, unencumbered by past constraints. So it's important to recognize. So you've got your diplomatic passport, your authenticated birth certificate, your federal filing, depending on what your needs are, of course, the marital aspect, the driver's license element, the ministry trust documents, and of course the awareness of the Underworld contracts. There'll be other little accessories too that'll be added on, because every now and then when I get more ideas, I just keep adding up more videos to add more value to what we're offering. So it's just one of those things that I'm taking a lot of information and I'm doing my best to make it as easy to implement as best as possible for those who are hungry to learn more and implement this in their own lives. Now, the silver plan, what that is it's the offerings, and of course I'll put the flyer, I'll make that available to you all, but basically the silver is the passport in the ministry exclusively. So it doesn't include all of this extra education, but it does include the workshop with the passport information. So when you're signing up, you're definitely getting access to the 7.5-hour workshop. So you can study into getting your passport done properly. And then of course the final, the bronze stage, the bronze program, is just those who are coming. You know, people sometimes just need to take this step by step and just do it slowly. And so we offer the bronze for those who just wish to only exclusively move forward with their passport. If there's this deep down abiding fear, oh my goodness, if you become a state national, some people are going to look at you like you're, you know, a sovereign citizen and you're a breakaway civilization and you're not complying with the laws, and ooh, okay, all right, so there's a legitimate concern, all right? So I think that I'm going to have to extend the emotional aspect both ways here. The reason why, when one is contacting us, why they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement and another agreement if they're participating in seminars or other agreements, is because I've been doing this for so long, and I've run into situations in the past where I gave my stuff away for free. The problem is people would turn around and mix and match it with processes that are completely not, you can't mix them. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I think we're going to have to really keep everything under the non-disclosure agreement, because if it passes from one person's hands to the next, to the next, to the next, without or void of the true understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, that does pose to be a serious problem. So, on both sides. So, essentially, the non-disclosure is a very key element that I've been able to use to protect our processes. And I say our in terms of the ministry, because it's under the ministry that we operate with this. So, the non-disclosure agreement, then the other agreement, so that if you're viewing a video or what have you, I'm asking you to keep certain videos private, all right? And so it's in good faith that we're doing that. And that's, again, to preserve this material and to have you learn it directly through us, because if I'm the one who's putting these documents together, I'm going to have the understanding on how to implement the documentation. And the methods by which I do this is highly likely different from other people's approaches. I can say that actually it is. So we want to protect the process, but we also want to protect you from making very serious mistakes. And it's easy, especially if you're new to this process, to make blunders without, getting the proper coaching. So that's why you're integrating with us, whether it's a 6-month program or a year program. You're working with us, with our coaches that are with myself or other coaches that are very well trained. And of course, if one of our coaches ever runs into something they don't understand, then that's what I'm here for. So that's important. We've got to definitely be very upfront that, of course, you're coming into an area that's highly unknown, and it could be strange, and it could feel like, what's going on here? And there's another element too, that when you're coming across this information, some people could be extremely disturbed by it. And I feel that I don't have the right to teach this unless I have the remedy, because there's no reason to bring up a problem unless I can provide the way out. So that's a very important aspect. So, okay, how will my life be different once these filings take place? Number one, you've extracted yourself from being a citizen of District of Columbia. You've extracted yourself from being property as a non-surety. You're no longer giving permission to tie your soul to that piece of paper, meaning the birth certificate, or any other paper for that matter, because in essence, the driver's license, the passport, these are all court judgments, social security cards, all of that stuff. These are all things that are being used to trade our value on the open markets. And so we're saying no, we're cutting from being a slave in this system. We're saying no to that. And so how will your life be different? I do note that others have mentioned to me they felt a huge weight lifted off their shoulders. That's number one. Number two, a big deal for me is providing a way where we can bring forward an element of leadership that is not covenanting with any forms of darkness as best as possible. Now, we're in and out of contracts on a day-to-day basis, and so we just have to stay vigilant in regards to that. But for the most part, the goal is to free souls. That's the real key behind this. Are there other benefits that happen as a result of that? Well, like I said, the way that the approaches are taken, certainly we've been able to help people to not have to take any of the mandatory vaccines. We've been able to help people do that with this paperwork. And the reason we like to encourage people to get the gold plan is because the federal filing has the data and the information in there. So the passport, though the passport doesn't look different, the information that's embedded into the passport is different from others. Why? Because the statement that you provided is a part of your file with the Department of State. So TSA and Homeland Security, they have access to that. We can go down a lot of rabbit holes here, but in essence, the aspect is freedom is the main goal, and making sure that we are no longer being traded, or at least we're not permissioning that. That's a very, very big deal, so that we're no longer affected by this type of hex or vex or spell or bewitchment. You know, that's precisely what they did to us with this birth certificate issue. It's some form of gaining power over us. So the other ones, let's see, the other questions. Burning questions that people are most likely to ask. So so removing the fear from this process once again. You're not doing this alone. When you're going into the Department of State, I will be there by phone with you. In some cases, I was able to be personally available physically for some, but that's a whole other situation right there. But most just, they do very well with me just being there by phone, and I'm texting you back and forth. And for some other instances too, like I've helped a handicapped daughter get their stuff, their filings done. Their dad stepped forward and asked me to help with this. And I'm like, you know what? You're not going to do well to stand in a government office for 5 to 6 or 7 hours. So let's go ahead and let's get you to mail in your process. And so they were able to do that and had a good experience in doing so. So yes, there are ways to facilitate mailings if someone's going through some kind of a disability or other reasons why they can't travel or go into a government building. Totally okay and acceptable. So let's see. So yeah, step by step, you're following the process with me basically holding your hand or our coaches doing so. And yes, I've had 100% success on all of those participants who did participate. There are some that I do try to remind them and say, hey, you got to get it done. When are you going to get it done? But I don't want to, everyone has free will. And so the participants who have participated and followed all the instructions, I have 100% success on those stories. And it doesn't mean that the government offices don't change. They do. But the point of me being with each one of you on the phone when you're going through these processes is if there is a change, I will ask to speak with the Department of State agent, and I will say, listen, this is not about any kind of an adversarial request. I just want to make sure we're in compliance with the check boxes you need to comply with. So can you help me understand or understand, however you'd like to say it, what do you need for us to complete this process? And that has happened. So for those who, they might be like, well, how is this process repeatable? The way it's repeatable is I'm continually engaged and involved with my clients. And of course, my coaches are too, and they're being trained. So when they're being trained, they're with me on the phone, and they're really listening into the way I ask questions. And so that's how I've been able to help my clients or our clients at Diplomatic Mission for the Signatures have 100% success. And it's because I am intimately involved in all stages of the process. And so, yes, some government offices have different requirements. So as long as I'm able to be on the phone to figure out what their needs are, we will make it happen and make sure that we're basically supplying all parties with what they need in order to move this process forward in a safe manner and in a way that's with diplomatically done and tastefully done, with respect, of course. Oh yeah, the question, how many people have you been able to help? Now, I can only give a good round number here, not exact, but going back for 20 years, I would say I've helped at least 60 something clients get their 508 unincorporated ministries done. I'm going to say since 2017 or 18, I would say I'm somewhere around 25 to 30 people who acquired their passports successfully using our process. And of course, like I said, if we have to adapt the process, here's an example of where the process had to be adapted. When yours truly was not very happy with the Department of State, I exposed the fact that there was some entrapment language on the form in 2021, March 4th. And that video went viral. And the proper people within the government did see, in fact, that I was, with sore displeasure, reading what was on page 404 under acts or conditions. The Department of State actually stepped up within a 3-month period of time and did the right thing, and they changed the form. And of course, you get to see that within the workshop. So you don't get to miss out on any of the old stuff that happened. So they updated the form. And so in some offices, I believe it was Oregon. I'm trying to remember if it was Oregon or Washington. It's not readily available to my memory, but they indicated at that office, hey, you don't have to supply the affidavits with the form. The form, the way it's filled out, does explicate the manner by which their nationality is defined. And I was like, well, that's great, but some people are like, wait a minute, I really want my affidavit to go in with the file. So in that instance, they were able to prevail in that matter and said, listen, One party from that office said, listen, you don't have to add the affidavit. So I just said, hey, if you don't care, we'll just add your affidavit right into your federal filing. The other party, where they wanted to add the affidavit, my client was really, she was very diplomatic and said, listen, we would like to submit the affidavit, even if it's not necessary. And they said, well, that's totally okay too. So she was able to submit that on behalf of her and the entire family and the children. So every case is different, but so if there's any changes, we'll be always on top of that as best as we can be, especially too with the opening of the ministry accounts. Like I said earlier, the banking laws are changing constantly, so we want to make sure that each bank, according to their needs, is getting the data that they need from you in order to open the account properly. I am very aware, because of having been involved in this arena, that there's a lot of traps out there that could get people into trouble. So the other important reason why you'd want to work with us, and I mean follow the protocols and get the coaching and not operate outside of the parameters of our contract agreement. Step by step, we do this together. I have seen recently, and I was very unhappy with this, on some application it said, oh, all you have to do is click down and your zip code will be all 5 zeros and you can type in that you're stateless. And I said, don't do that. Don't do that. That is not okay. That is not good. That is a trap. And for anyone who likes to watch the Mission Impossible series, in there is your answer as to why that is not appropriate. If you list yourself as stateless, it means that that no government on this earth has any requirement or any duty to protecting you. No government has any duty to protect you. That is not what we're doing. So if we're going to become operating as American nationals or state nationals, we are as foreign, but we are not foreign. Why? Because we are the original posterity. So that is very important. There's a lot of nuances in this sort of thing, and it took me all these many years to see the loopholes and the traps that they're going to outline to get you to make more boo-boos. We're going to avoid the boo-boos. If you're working with me and us, we are not going to be having you do a process that puts you in danger. That is the number one issue right there. So I hope this is helpful to all of you, and no matter what program you select, it means a lot to me that you're interested in this subject matter, or to us here, the Diplomatic Mission for the Cygnus. And so, just reach out to us if you have any questions. Connect at ambassadornectaria.org. Our website is ambassadornectaria.org, and our YouTube channel is Ambassador Nectaria. Our Rumble channel is at Ambassador Nectaria. We're looking to get on other platforms too. But just reach out if you have any questions. But I'm doing my best to address not just the intellectual elements, but yeah, of course this is an emotional process. It's a little embarrassing, but I didn't even put that together. That could very well be a real issue for people, is the fear element. So we'll be adding more and more videos. We'll be getting more and more testimonials up for you too, not just written ones, but actual, video testimonies too. And we'll just keep building it up because it's important that you feel comfortable engaging in this process. And of course, I don't know everything. I'm constantly in that position of being teachable. I'm constantly in the position of wanting to learn more. But if I do see red flags or things that are out there, I am going to address those head on. I'm not going to dance around the subject. I'm going to tell you if there's something you're thinking of doing that could likely put you in danger. Number one, if you're doing our process, it has to be followed exactly. the way that it's shared with you. However, if you're expanding or wanting to learn more or introduce different new ideas to me, I will let you know if those are things that we can integrate into your process too, your experience, because we won't call it a process. It's constantly evolving, constantly changing. And but anyway, it's our honor and pleasure to serve each and every one of you. And so, like I said, if you have any questions, do reach out to us, and we'll do our best to address if it's a fear or if it's a lack of piece of information or what have you. We are completely sensitive to that, and I'm so appreciative for the one that reached out to ask me to make this video. So what a tremendous, tremendous, valuable asset this lady is. God bless you, and we look forward to hearing from you.